almost in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow skies are blue. The dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me. Where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you find me. Someday I wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me. Where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you find me. Somewhere over the rainbow skies are blue. Above the rainbow, why, oh, why can't I?
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Oh, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Oh, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth, keepers of faith, makers of peace, and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are one.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Sunday morning worship service at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of York. I am Jennifer Potts, and I will be helping to lead our service this morning. I have been a member of this congregation for 8 years, and I am glad to call it my spiritual home. Like many before me, I came in search of a community for my family and young children. Having grown up in southern York County, I was shocked and absolutely ecstatic to discover a progressive, liberal, and affirming faith tradition right here in York. I am forever grateful that we belong to the UUCY family and that UUCY belongs to us. In keeping with our fifth Unitarian Universalist principle, to affirm and promote democracy in our congregation and in society at large, our service today is dedicated to all those who have already voted and all of those who will vote in our state and federal elections on Tuesday. Yesterday being Halloween, and today being All Saints' Day, and tomorrow being All Souls' Day, we also dedicate this service to honoring our ancestors whose spirits live on through us. Before we begin our time together, please remember to type in the chat box any matters of the heart or candles of sharing that you would like to share with the congregation today, so that Reverend Terry can read them aloud later in our service. And so, we come together again this morning for worship and fellowship as we greet old friends and new visitors alike. We also invite you to light a candle at home, as in keeping with our Unitarian Universalist tradition, we light a chalice as we begin our service. Our chalice lighting words today were written by Reverend Jamie Yandel. Reverend Yandel, they Jamie, is a board-certified hospice chaplain serving in South Carolina.
We light this flame to ignite the sacred power of justice. We light this flame so that it may be a beacon of hope in moments of uncertainty, fear, anxiety, and the unknown. We light this flame
and are emboldened by its blaze, knowing our strength as a prophetic and powerful people is rooted in the diverse ways we answer the call to love.
Once again, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Sunday morning worship service, virtual worship service again, here at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of York. My name is Reverend Terry Cummings, and I'm very, very privileged and grateful to be spending time with you this morning, albeit on camera and not in person. We have a very special event after the service this morning, and I'd like to just remind you now that at 11:30 we will be having a town hall meeting, similar to the meeting that we had back in the spring, for all of you to share your thoughts about what is working for you in the church these days with regard to Sunday morning, with regard to faith development, and any other thoughts or ideas you might have to suggest to the leadership, and also any questions you may have for the leadership. So please, after the service is over, take a few minutes, but stay on the Zoom call and join us at 11:30 for a short meeting. And while I'm on the subject of announcements, I would like to let you know that tomorrow afternoon, on the eve of the election, for those of you who would like to come in and spend just some in-person time, for quiet time, maybe a prayer, meditation together as we await Tuesday, please send me an email, revterry@uucy.org. We have space for about 10 people in the sunroom, and we'll be gathering there about 4 o'clock. If I don't hear from anybody, then of course I will not show up. So I do need to hear from you. And again, at 7 o'clock tomorrow night, there will be an open Zoom call for people just to share their thoughts virtually about the upcoming election. There won't be any gatherings virtually on Election Day, Tuesday. I had initially thought that perhaps we should do some, but with the election results coming in so late, I decided that perhaps it wouldn't be a good idea. But there will be a Zoom call on Wednesday for those who would like to show up and connect virtually. I may not be here for that call. I've learned that I will be actually speaking in Harrisburg at 5 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon, but someone will be able to host and let you in. And finally, before we join our service, while I'm on the subject of announcements, this is just a reminder that our auction is now going live. Please look for information in your order of service, and I urge you to participate in the auction to the extent that you can. And now we begin our service of worship. I know that it's virtual and we would love to be here in person, but this is a time when we take the opportunity to see each other's faces, to be together in community, to reassure ourselves that we all are here for one another. So let's spend this next 45 minutes in worship together. And we open that worship today with a short meditation, a short prayer. So I invite you now into a period of quiet, let your body relax, and I will walk you through just a quiet time to get us into the spirit of worship. If you need to change your position so that your spine is straight, your body relaxed, your hands resting gently in your lap, now's a good time to do it. You may want to close your eyes and shut out all of the distractions of the light. Maybe turn off the video on your computer screen. Let's take a few deep, slow breaths together. The Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh reminds us that breathing in and breathing out are ways that we know we are alive. Let us breathe in, hold it, let it go. Breathe in again, hold it, let it go. If you are a woman and you're fearful for what the future may hold for women, I invite you to place a hand over your heart. If you are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or identify as queer or gender non-conforming, I invite you to place a hand over your heart. If you are black, brown, Native American, or don't otherwise identify as white, I invite you to place a hand over your heart. If you are a parent of a child whose education has been affected by the COVID virus, you too place a hand over your heart. Now let all of us who are fearful, tired, or suffering place a hand over our hearts. For those who don't have a hand on your heart, you may want to place a hand over your lower chest, above your belly button. Allow yourself to feel the steady contact, the warmth of your hands against your bodies, the contact of your bones against the chair or couch below you or your feet on the floor. Now, keeping one hand where it feels best, let us extend our other hand or our head in the direction of the universe, towards a door or a window or the ceiling. And now let us extend our thoughts outward as well in simple witness, a simple gesture of connection to all that is good and holy. We move our hands between these places, heart, tummy, and outstretched, or simply hold them in place. Let our thoughts greet the ancestors who have returned from beyond the grave to be among us on this ancient weekend of Halloween. They too lived through difficult times and suffered as many of us are suffering. And now I invite you to join me in a spirit of prayer or meditation. Spirit of life and love, we send all that is good out to those who are sick, those who are alone, those who have lost jobs, parents and children whose lives have been turned upside down. To those who are afraid and fearful, may they find joy and comfort. To those who are angry, may they find peace. To the poll workers and vote counters on whose shoulders the trust of our nation has been placed during a time of national emergency, we send our thanks. May everyone know safety, dignity, and peace in the knowledge that in the end, existence will take care of itself and of us. We are not alone. None of us is truly alone. Let us focus once more on our breathing. Breathing in, breathing out. I invite you to come back now, back into this worship space. Spend the next period of time together and not alone. Amen.
There we go. Now you can all hear me. All right. The wonders of technology. Good morning, all. So, have you ever watched a candle or a chalice burn? The fire is alive. It moves and it flickers. Be careful with it. It's alive. It's born and it grows and it dies. But fire is special because it can live again and again and again. And people have always known that fire was special. Long ago, before people made matches and candles or anything, they knew that fire was special. There was the great fire in the sky that was the sun, and that made the earth warm and made night into day. And there were smaller fires that people made, fires that cooked their food and kept them warm and brought them light. People honored fire because it was special. It was more than human. It has power to both create and destroy. It can bring light but it also can burn. It can be wonderful, but it can also be terrible. So we have to be careful. And so many people thought that fire was something sacred and holy. They even worshipped fire and said that fire itself was a god. Other people said that fire wasn't actually God, but just meant that God was there and present. But no matter what they believed, people all over the world gave fire a very special place within their religions. They had fire in their homes, of course, to cook, to keep warm, as we mentioned, but they also had sacred fires in their temples. And they set these sacred lamps on their altars. And they lit sacred bonfires outside on hilltops and in groves, and they placed sacred torches near the graves of those who died. And we still do this today. Think about Washington, D.C., near the tomb of the unknown soldier. There's an eternal flame that never burns. Never goes out. It always burns. At churches at Christmas time, think about when we light our candles for Advent, or even on Christmas Eve and do our candlelight service. The 8 days of Hanukkah. At Diwali, Hindus set up small lamps around the house. Kwanzaa lights their candles. And we Unitarian Universalists, when we gather, as we did this morning and every time, we light our chalice. This is our sacred fire. It gives warmth and light, just like all fire. But it's also a symbol. It is our symbol. And what does it represent? It is a light of learning. It's a light of love. But a chalice is also, while mine is just a candle, a chalice is actually a big cup that you can drink from. And when you're thirsty, the nicest thing that you can do is to give someone something to drink. And it's sort of a way of welcoming them and feeding them and sustaining them, right? So the picture that we see of a chalice, our symbol, was first drawn during World War II. And it was drawn as the symbol of the Unitarian Service Committee. And that during the war, this committee needed a symbol to show refugees and people fleeing other countries and trying to escape the Nazi regime that they were there to help, that it was a symbol of light in the darkness. And it didn't matter what language they spoke, they knew that the symbol of light being led forward was positive. They knew that it was there as a symbol to help. And just like sacred fires, people have used their chalices in religions for thousands of years, right? Just the fire I mentioned about all the candles they light, they've also had chalices. Greeks and Romans put wine in their chalices. Some have put water, milk. Some have even put blood in their chalice. Jesus shared a cup of wine with his disciples, and many Christians still do this today. But we don't drink from our chalice. We use our chalice to hold the flame. And it keeps the fire small so that the flame doesn't blind us, but it still gives us light. And we can see many things from it. Because it is the light of learning. And as our family keeps us warm, both our family at home and our Unitarian Universalist family, we help each other. And we share each other and feed each other. And we take care of each other, because that is what families are supposed to do. And so we invite and call forward everyone, our ancestors, those who have yet to come. This is a symbol to represent not only light and learning, but it is a symbol of love. It is our symbol. And it is important to remember that. not only on Sunday mornings, but every day. That is who we are, and this represents our eternal quest to learn, to grow, and to love. Blessed be, and amen.
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? History. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? History. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we go? Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we go? Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we go? Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we go? Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going?
Bible, the book of Judges, chapter 9, verses 8 through 15. The parable of the trees. The trees once went out to anoint a king for themselves. They said to the olive tree, "Reign over us." The olive tree answered them, "Shall I stop producing my rich oil by which gods and mortals are honored and go sway over the trees?" Then the trees said to the fig tree, "You come and reign over us." But the fig tree answered them, "Shall I stop producing my sweetness and my delicious fruit and go to sway over the trees?" Then the trees said to the vine, "You come and reign over us." But the vine said to them, "Shall I stop producing my wine that cheers gods and mortals and go sway over the trees?" So all the trees said to the thorn bush, "You come and reign over us?" And the thorn bush said to the trees, "If in good faith you are anointing me king over you, then come and take refuge in my shade. But if not, let a fire come out of the thorn bush and devour the cedars of Lebanon." Those poor trees, Every time there's a presidential election, I find myself thinking about them, getting together to choose a king and being rejected by every tree that was any good, then ending up with the thorn bush. Of course, they didn't think about reducing their consumption of olive oil or wine or figs in order to induce those trees to be their king. So they ended up getting what they deserved. That's what a true democracy is all about, though. In a democracy, at least in theory, the people end up with the leaders they deserve. If they aren't willing to make a sacrifice, or they don't show up to vote, or they vote for the wrong candidate, they end up getting a thorn bush to sway over them. As the parable of the trees tells us, if you stay on the thorn bush's good side, it will protect you with its shade. Otherwise, you'd better watch out. But there's not much shade under a thorn bush, so either way you're in trouble. And that's the main point of this parable. Be careful if you elect a thorn bush as your king. It's hard to ignore the fear that has accompanied the federal and state elections now underway in our country. Many of us can identify with the fear that basic human rights are at stake for people of color, for women, for members of the LGBTQ community. Fear that climate change will go unaddressed, among many other threats that are facing us. Many of us are also fearful of the existential threat to our democracy and our system of government, that voter suppression is rampant and the courts seem to be, in some cases, upholding. And some of us, some of our fellow citizens, are fearful that socialism and even communism are about to take over in our country. These are troubling times. Yet there are reasons to be optimistic. Abraham Lincoln's Secretary of State, William Seward, said during the Civil War, "There was always just enough virtue in this republic to save it. Sometimes none to spare, but still enough to meet the emergency." Despite the enormous challenges that have occurred over the last 2.5 centuries, our institutions of government have always stood up to the challenge, and we can believe that they will even now, once again. Though shaky, they may yet withstand the efforts of those who are determined to undo our democracy and to take away our rights as human beings. There may be just enough virtue in our country to save our republic again. I believe there is. Just look at the millions of people of all colors and backgrounds who turned out to march this past summer for Black Lives Matter, for trans and LGBTQ rights. Look at the millions of healthcare workers who put their lives at risk to care for sick people these past several months during the COVID. And finally, a candle for all of our unspoken joys and concerns. May the joys be magnified and the concerns be diminished by the sharing. Our closing words today are by Thich Nhat Hanh. They're from his well-known book, No Mud, No Lotus, The Art of Happiness. Thank you, Doug. The essence of our practice can be described as transforming suffering into happiness. It's not a complicated practice, but it requires us to cultivate mindfulness, concentration, and insight. It requires, first of all, that we come home to ourselves, that we make peace with our suffering, treating it tenderly and looking deeply at the roots of our pain. It requires that we let go of useless, unnecessary sufferings, release the second arrow, and take a closer look at our idea of happiness. Finally, it requires that we nourish happiness daily with acknowledgement, understanding, and compassion for ourselves and for those around us. We offer these practices to ourselves and to our loved ones and to the larger community. This is the art of suffering and the art of happiness. With each breath, we ease suffering and we generate joy. With each step, the flower of insight blooms. May your roots grow deep. May your branches grow wide. Our worship is over. Our service begins. Stay safe, everybody. Go in love. Go in peace. Go in joy. Make space for happiness. And if you haven't done it already, please go vote on Tuesday. I'll see you next week.
As our Sunday worship draws to a close, we extinguish our chalice. Please feel free to follow along by reading the words on your screen as we extinguish our chalices together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.